Hi, I'm RJ's Day, and I'm just giving a video response to Harley's video of The Last Jedi doesn't suck, we suck. Um, Sorry if I'm going to be a little more familiar with you. I'm going to call you Harley so I don't get in the whole Stein confusion, but just let me know which one you prefer. I'll call you that. First of all, I really appreciate you laying out all those points. You did a very in-depth, deep, long, deep video, and it was good. I liked hearing all your feedback. I liked hearing exactly what you thought, and not a lot of people do that. They'll either defend it or they'll attack it, but they won't really bullet point out the things. So when you were going through it, there were a few things I noticed that I didn't think were entirely true, or maybe there were some counterpoints you hadn't thought of. So I just want to kind of go through those. Of course, I am also going to hit. There are some defense things that I think you might have left out. Just to be clear, where I am on the scale of love and hate, I'm like, I'm not. I don't hate it. I don't hate The Last Jedi. I don't love it. I'm not technically okay with it. Um, I'm not one of those people that wants to push for a total remake. I would be thrilled that there was a special edition because special editions happen in Star Wars. I think it would be a great opportunity to do a special edition just because there were little things that bothered me. Um, and of course, there were some big things. Now, where I'm going to come from might be a different angle than what you're normally used to with people attacking The Last Jedi. I'm more going to come at it that the flaws weren't necessarily Star Wars flaws, they were cinema and movie flaws. So the first thing I was going to talk about was the lack of tactics in the first battle, at the very least. Um, whether this is a Star Wars or not, we're being told these are generals and commanders and everything in high ranks. And normally you're supposed to raise up in those ranks by a knowledge of tactics, being a good leader. And I didn't see that from most of the leaders, on nearly all of them in the movie. And this is, a few specific points. Um, Regardless of the fact that the post fighter comes out in the beginning and explicitly Hux says he has orders from the Supreme Leader himself to kill everybody, no prisoners. Um, he waits to hear what Poe has to say, which is a weird thing, but I'm gonna let it go because you know what, you could be curious. Everyone can be curious, and if you think you have an overwhelming force, you're gonna, doesn't really matter. You're gonna wipe them out anyway. So, but my issue was when the dreadnought was under attack. Why didn't the other Star Destroyers put their fighters out there, or at least come to their defense, in some sort of defensive formation? And also, why did Hux tell his dreadnought to fire at the base, and then tell the dreadnought to turn and then fire at the ship, and then nobody on the rest of the huge fleet they had brought in attack anybody in the rebellion slash resistance? That's another one of those points I'll hit later on. But yeah, you'd think if you have all these ships and they're here to do a task, I mean, you don't bring all your boys to a fight for no reason. I mean, all those ships are there. So while the dreadnought's under attack, those other Star Destroyers could have been attacking the Raddus. I mean, they were doing nothing. They were just watching out the window with Hux's face, like as they were getting attacked. So that was weird. And I think that's just it's like I said, it's just a movie thing. It's not a Star Wars thing. It's just a writing thing. So the whole thing around Holdo not telling Poe the plan, and your point was, she didn't have to tell him the plan. Well, in terms of military structure, she does. I mean, regardless of him being demoted from commander to captain, and if the official papers hadn't gone through, it doesn't really matter. But the thing is, regardless of his demotion, he's still commander of the air group. He's still CAG. He's still in charge of all the fighters. And the visual guide says most of the fighters double as foot soldiers too. So to vote of anybody below her rank, and him being possibly the next one right below her, she absolutely does have to tell him plan, because in case she gets taken out or blown up, nobody knows the plan. So he does actually have to be told. And the fact that the second he comes up to talk to her, he's coming completely 100% professional. He's giving her a sit rep, and then he's, saying, so what's our next move? She comes back at him with attitude. And then if you rewatch it, I mean, you probably watched it, you said like 3 times. In the past 2 days, I think I've watched it twice again. Just before I did this video, I want to make sure I got all my points and noticed everything. I watched it on Netflix because it came on Netflix. She comes at him nearly instantly with attitude, for one, which is militarily unprofessional. And then she comes at him attacking him and saying, I know your type, which is then being judgmental and everything like that. And then saying, fly boys who all want to do this. Then she's attacking him as a man on top of that. So there were like 3 separate attacks by her statement and her attitude and everything. Which is, I mean, in the military world, that's uncalled for anyway. There was nothing, and technically, yes, he did disobey orders. He was disciplined for that. So after the discipline is done, you move on. And she's ripping him again for something that he's already been disciplined for. So past that point, I mean, I got little things in there that bother me that could be easily fixed, like I said, by a special edition. Paige falling down the ladder, hitting the grate, and then looking up at the remote controller, and instead of, which she clearly had time when you watch it, sitting up and shaking the ladder, which would have been way more effective, she chooses to kick it repeatedly, obviously for dramatic effect. But if you wanted to make sure that the audience doesn't look at that like, why don't you just stand up and shake the ladder? Just have like a little teeny, like half-second shot of either her uniform snagged on the metal, or maybe like a something stabbing through her side or something, just so that she can't get up, so she has to kick, which adds to the drama. Of course, you always have the whole slow bombers, very ineffective in terms of combat, and your point against that is that the resistance is poor. Didn't really get that a lot when I was reading through the visual guides and everything. They aren't, I don't know, they're different than the Rebellion in the fact that the Rebellion had to hide, and the Resistance technically kind of was hiding, but didn't really have to that much. They weren't technically on the run until this First Order thing happened. They were funded and financed and given materials by people sympathetic to their cause in the New Republic Senate. So they had backers. That's why they have the T-70 X-Wings. They also are getting a lot of surplus that was coming out of both phased out equipment by the New Republic fleet and army, but also up-to-date equipment that was coming out of the demilitarization that happened between the New Republic and the Imperial Remnant. So they do have some fairly good supplies and equipment. So these bombers, while they were kind of, not in the same realm, I mean, those X-Wings are fairly incredible in terms of speed and weapons, but this one is shy. And obviously they have turrets to defend them because they're slow, but they're still fairly ineffective as a military tool. So you would think one of the first things they would do is upgrade the engines, make them faster, maybe strip them, make them lighter, especially the people formerly of the Rebellion, which most of the command structure is from the Rebellion. So they know the lessons. They know how to retrofit. They know how to piece together. Obviously, that B-wing transport was pieced together, so they know how to do that. And the fact that these bombers have a slowest speed to actually not be able to escape their potential blast radius was a little weird. So, I mean, like I said, a special edition could easily nip these things in the bud. You put one line in there about, well, can't we blow up this ship with the Radis's weapons? Oh, it's like, oh, their shields are too strong. We have to get inside their shield. Boom, we know instantly that they have to use these bombers and that they're going to be within the shields when they drop the bombs. So then you know that they're going to be really close. And they're going to say, okay, well, we haven't had time to upgrade the engines on these yet, so it's going to be extremely dangerous, and they'll have to pull up at the last second to escape this. So this is a volunteer-only mission. So that would make you care a lot more about the people that are in those bombers because they are volunteers. They said, okay, we know the risk. It's even more risk than if we had good bombers. We have to get inside the shields. We might not be able to pull up in time because of the blast radius. That puts a lot more drama behind it, and also puts a lot more drama to the fact that when Paige hits the button, that she knows she's not going to make it too, because her pilot's down, so they can't pull up. So she's out, and she knows that no matter what, she's out. So she's going to hit the button and take care of the mission anyway. Shows like a lot of follow through, a lot of strength, and the fact that the button obviously passes her past the point of grabbing, and then all of a sudden the shot's her like flipped around. I think you could just cut that scene real quick to show it starting to pass and not going past her, but falling like this, and then she, easy little cut would make that just the little annoying things start to add up in this movie to me. And like I said, most of them aren't Star Wars things. They're just plain like writing or visual like plot issues or story issues for me. Um, so I had down here that the space chase between the Radis and the First Order fleet doesn't make any sense. I know you were saying that people are saying you could have just hyperspace jumped in front of them and come from the other way, and you're saying you don't know if that's possible because you don't fly these ships. Well, it actually is. It's been shown in the canon movies and TV shows specifically. I've seen instances in Clone Wars where not only have they been able to jump and then tell their droid to spool up the hyperdrive engine to jump again so they could jump in rapid succession. They did show an episode where Anakin was able to come out of hyperspace right next to a separatist ship, so close that they couldn't even see them, on Dratus radar or whatever they have, on scanners or sensors. But also visually they couldn't see them because they were so close, and then they just docked right by the thing. Also, you see Han able to, I don't know how accurate this would be, but manually drop out of hyperspace right before they collide with a planet. So pinpoint accuracy of hyperspace jumps is technically possible in short range jumps. We know that at least. And then we know that from other episodes, they can go from planet, system, system. So they can, you could jump halfway across the galaxy and then turn around and then jump closer to where you were and be on the other side. My job, I usually keep it out of my YouTube channel, but I do work with law enforcement and military. And when I was asking them, what would you do if you were pursuing a vehicle that was faster than you? They go, set up a blockade. Like instantly, they just knew roadblock, blockade, have other units come from the other side. Like that's the standard way to stop someone who's running that's faster than you. The arching blaster shots in space. I know you came back and you said, this is Star Wars, this is physics, they can do whatever they want. It might not be the same as us, but I think what gets most people and what gets me is that it has never been shown in anything else before. And everything else, Star Wars, direct energy or blaster based plasma has always gone straight. Especially in space, where I could see plasma possibly arcing in a high gravity well area, but it should go straight. The only thing we've seen arcing have actually been projectile, or what they call mass cannons or something like that, where they're actually shooting some sort of projectile that's also energy charged. The AT-TEs shoot it. Those can arc. They're shown in the Clone Wars and in the Battle of Geonosis. They're showing arcing. So you could say that maybe what they're shooting is some sort of mass driver cannon, and it's plasma charged or something. But the planet that they were around was so far away, and also it wasn't like in the orientation in which they'd be like this, where it would be like arcing it. So I don't really buy it. That it did bug me a little bit. So that is a Star Wars thing, though. That's not a writing or plot, the whole thing, but that's like a consistency thing that bothers me. But back to story and everything like that. The Canto Bight really gave us nothing. I know it shows a different side of the galaxy, but that side of the galaxy is interesting to see and to be exposed to it, to see what's going on in the world, or in the whole universe or galaxy. But the issue to me is it didn't really help the story. In fact, the entire Canto Bight mission was contrary to the main mission in hand. Because Poe didn't know the plan, everything he was doing about Canto Bight was actually working against what the Resistance is trying to do. So he's actually like fighting against the Resistance, and he's part of the he's actually, I don't know if because he gave the okay, he's the main reason why the people in the shuttles all died, or not all died. I mean, most of them were hit by the cannons when they were trying to get to Crait. But if he hadn't okayed the mission, then Rose and Finn wouldn't have gone on their little side quest to come back with a guy who eventually betrays them. And also the fact that over open comms, Poe says, and this is the first thing I missed. I actually did miss this. I usually catch everything, but Poe says that they're going to get into shuttles and leave in front of DJ. When he's on the comm system, he's on the back seat, they're in the front talking to him, so he overhears it. So I thought, I was like, okay, why? How does he even know to scan for these shuttles? And it's kind of clear that he knows because he overheard it, and that's Poe's bad, because he just said it over open comms after they said they got a code breaker, and they didn't even know this guy. So he should have been quiet about that. But that whole side quest in Crait, I mean, I understand it built more of Rose's character, and people, they're both sides about Rose. I'm like right in the middle. I think she could be a good character. I think that she's pivotal to Finn. I always analyze that Star Wars always has 6 characters as the main good guys. You have the young hero who's supposed to grow to be something better than they are. They start like us and they become someone powerful, right? You have the rogue hero or the reluctant hero who doesn't really want to be there for some reason, but is competent and usually ends up being very helpful. Then you have the moral compass. The moral compass couples with the rogue character. The reason for the moral compass is someone who knows right from wrong and who basically doesn't even have to say anything to the reluctant hero. They just have to look at them or glare at them to make them do the right thing. And for the originals, that was, I mean, I wish you got Luke, Han, and Chewie. So every time Han wanted to leave, Chewie would just kind of look at him, and Han would be like, what are you looking at? I know what I'm doing. But then it would seed in his mind, and he would come back. So Rose, we have Rey, obviously, for the young hero. The rogue or the reluctant hero is Finn in this case, because he doesn't want to be there. And then you have Rose, who is kind of the moral compass for him. She's the one that gets him to come back and realize what the right thing is. And that's done to an effective way in this movie. But the reason why the whole Canto Bight feels weird is because it's like forced. It's like she wasn't with Finn in The Force Awakens. She wasn't introduced there, which I think she should have been. So for the whole first movie, I didn't like Finn. And, he's growing on me, but I really didn't like him because he was so reluctant to be there. But his motivation for not wanting to be there was cowardice. Han's reluctance to be there was selfishness and feeling that this fight wasn't really his fight. So that's kind of relatable. I mean, there are plenty of people that get involved in revolutions or something that at first, this isn't really my fight. I don't have a stake in it. So that was Han, and it was relatable and kind of endearing. And he's kind of cocky about it. Finn was just like wanting to leave. He's scared of the First Order. So the whole Force Awakens, I was like, fine, leave, go. I don't really want you here. You're kind of messing with me in the story. I want to enjoy it. So Rose would have really helped out in that, and she is helping bring him back to wanting to be a part of the rebellion, resistance. That's one of my next points. Is it resistance or is it rebellion? They got to make up their mind. I would have preferred they stay with resistance, even though resistance didn't make any sense when they were offshoot of the New Republic and the First Order hadn't attacked yet. Resistance isn't a thing. It should be like an underground. Underground would have made sense. Rebellion still doesn't really make sense right now because technically the First Order doesn't have control of the entire area. They said in there they're going system by system. Actually, in this movie, resistance makes the most sense because they're resisting the takeover of the First Order. The second the First Order completely takes over, then they'd be like a rebellion. But still technically a resistance. So I would have wanted them to just stay at resistance. But again with the Finn Rose, it was forced because they crammed the whole let's make these two like a companion set in one movie. They gave them a scene off to their side, and that was it. Felt a little forced, felt a little awkward to me. I think they could have put them in Force Awakens and Last Jedi, and I would have let them sink into me a little bit better. But as it is, I kind of want Finn to just leave. Um, okay, then we got down here. We got the fact that it's a ripoff of a fan fiction. Um, I was shown a little while ago that there is actually a fan fiction that was written right after Force Awakens came out and before the script of The Last Jedi was even finished or even started, I believe. That there was a fan fiction that had a lot of the key points that are in this movie, including Phasma's weapon about a staff that extends, including the scene where Kylo and Rey are wrestling over the lightsaber. I think the only difference was the lightsaber didn't explode, rip in half, but they were fighting over that. The whole reveal that Rey's parents were nobody, where it was actually in the fan fiction, even to the point where they said that they were junk dealers or something like that. Well, they said junk hoarders or something like that in the movie. So the fact that a fan fiction, you said that the fans didn't come up with that movie, and that's why it was so good for you. A fan did basically come up with those big reveals and those points in a fan fiction. And I'm kind of curious why that wasn't a bigger deal when it came out that this is the fan fiction, here's the date it was written, here's the movie, nearly line by line, and a lot of the parts was off of the fan fiction. Maybe their wavelengths were, on the same frequency or something, but I don't know. The wording when you look at them side by side in the original words and that it's quite obvious, at least to me. Um, so Luke, his character, a lot of people attack and how he turned out. And you said, we haven't seen Luke all this time. We don't know what's happened to him and all that stuff. Well, to me, the biggest problem with Luke's character is that he decides to not kill Vader and to risk his own life and the whole rebellion plan in total to go and try to get his father back from the dark side after all the things he's done, killing younglings and everything. But when he sees the potential in the mind and the heart of his nephew, in a second he decides to off him. And to me, that is two different mentalities. I know that he said that he wrestled himself back. It was for a split second. He decided to do that, and he realized, oh, what am I doing? It was shame. But he didn't even have that moment when he was young. So in this part, he's supposed to be wise, older, experienced, more powerful with the Force, more connected to the Force. And at that peak of how he's supposed to be as a Jedi, he makes a worse decision than when he was young, ill-trained, and not totally a Jedi, a Jedi yet. I just think he would have grown in compassion and not lessened in compassion. That really offset me. Now, what you can do, and I said like in a special edition kind of situation, is a very easy way to fix this. And you could see in the flashback times when he's got the lightsaber on, he has like dark and red circles under his eyes. Normally people that are tuned into the dark side have a lot of corruption in their physical appearance, especially like around the eyes. So what you could say is that when he looked into Ben, instead of seeing all the darkness he could do, and in a second he thought he could stop it, he could say, just like a voiceover saying, I looked in him, I saw all the dark things that he was capable of doing, and in a split second, the darkness overwhelmed me. So what you have is Snoke's influence into Ben, and Ben's dark tendencies and corruption basically bled over and temporarily infected or corrupted Luke. And because he's such a powerful Jedi now, he was able to stop himself right at the brink at that moment after he decided, oh, I'm going to kill him. I was like, oh, wait, no, I shouldn't. I'm a Jedi. Like, he was so strong, he was able to resist the temptation that Snoke was like funneling into him. That to me would have been way more Luke, and it's so close to what was actually in the movie. I think the intent is there. It'd be perfect. The fact that he ran away to that planet alone to die, basically, I think you could totally have a little section in there explaining he didn't just run away because he was a failure and he wanted to die. He ran away because his faith in himself was shaken. He was carried over by his own legend about being Luke Skywalker, Jedi Master. He thought he was impervious to falling to the dark side like his father. But this moment where he let that corruption through inadvertently, that is perfect to show that he's not as resilient and as powerful as he thought he was. So his retreat to that island on that planet was basically him saying, if I turn to the dark side, it's going to be way worse than if Kylo turns to the dark side. You all have a chance to stop Kylo. You guys couldn't stop me. So to save everyone from that potential, he removes himself from the situation. And that just is a little more honorable than him just running away and pouting in the corner of the galaxy. I would have liked that a lot more. But the other issue I had was that Kathleen Kennedy had stated that Luke was going to be incredibly important for the next movie, which is this movie, The Last Jedi. And people were. It was in a panel or something that she was there next to Mark Hamill, and he goes, "Oh, well, that's good to hear." The fact that she said that, it just stings me a little because he was not pivotal and key to this movie. In fact, if you removed him, and when Rey came to the island and saw a tombstone basically that read, "Here lies Luke Skywalker, Jedi Master," something like that, it would have been just as useful, because he said he's going to teach her 3 lessons. He only teaches her 2. And basically the first one is kind of how to feel the Force, which I feel like she's doing a pretty good job getting there anyway. She learns how to do a mind trick just because she just knew how to do it. She's done a lot of other things that she just knew how to do. That's the whole Mary Sue situation that I'll touch on a little bit, but I'm not going to really hit it. It's a too hot topic. But yeah, I'll hit it a little later. Yeah, I got to. So if he were there dead at a tombstone, she would have gone to the planet. She would have found the tombstone. She would have been called by the tree. She would have gone in like she did without Luke, found the books, took the books. She would have then been called to the darkness of the tunnel, just like she was, went down to the tunnel, had the vision. All that would have been the way it was. Then she would have got back with Chewie, and they would have left. She would not have been given the lesson how to connect to the Force, that it didn't belong to the Jedi, but she might have read some of that in the book, in the books that she took. And then the other lesson that she... it's so hard to remember these lessons because it was only 2 out of 3 of them. Man, I'm really thinking that the second lesson was just that the Jedi Order failed, and it was a bad order. I mean, it kind of was. I mean, they were arrogant. They were self-righteous. They definitely got corrupted without the dark side. I do think the Jedi Order did need to be reformed. More of a... always had a hard time saying it, but the Jedi, or whatever the order right before it, in which they actually practice a balance between the dark and the light. And you need to be balanced between the two. I think balance is the key, because nature is a balance of dark and light, so every utilizer of the Force should be as well. But even without those lessons, she still would have pretty much gone and done those other things. And then she ends up going... She learns everything basically about the Force apparently by touching Kylo's hand. And the novelization, they talk about how when she touches Kylo, she basically downloads all of his skills, all of his power and everything, and is now an equal to Kylo Ren. So basically, that's one of my next points. The Mary Sue thing, she downloaded the app and became a Jedi. which kind of belittles the fact that Jedi used to be trained for like 20, 25 years to become a Jedi. Why do that when all Yoda had to do is go around and like give a high five to all the Padawans and the younglings, and then they were all like miniature Yoda powered Jedi everywhere. So I think maybe it was the quick and easy path to do that, and they feared doing it because it could lead to, someone too young having too much power. But the whole download the Jedi app it's a little too easy because there was no order to train her. So like, oh, how can we get her to be trained to be a Jedi? Well, let's just have her download an app and she knows everything, and then we're done. That was an issue for me. Let's see. The introduction of cussing and God was a problem for me. They did a really good job of keeping Christianity, Catholicism type of ideas and things out of Star Wars, and cussing and everything like that. Well, this one they brought it in. I mean, they brought in, I think it was ass, hell, and something else. But they usually have their own cuss words in Star Wars, and in this one, this is a Star Wars point. They didn't use Star Wars cuss words and stuff like blast. They used like shit or something like that. Like they used actual like cuss words in English, and they also said Godspeed and stuff like that. They put God into it all of a sudden. I was not cool with that. Not only just because my religion is not towards that, but because Star Wars was something completely separate, and they believed in the Force. That was their main religion. And when they could have said instead of Godspeed, why didn't they say May the Force be with you? I mean, that's what everyone wants to say in Star Wars. May the Force be with you, rebels. But they said Godspeed. I was like, why? You actually have a phrase in Star Wars that's meant for that, and you skipped it and you used it like a modern English one. That bothered me. The saber fighting. I come from a fencing background. That's gonna hit me a little harder than most people, but the fighting was subpar. Not just because, I mean, someone made a point to me the other day that Luke wasn't very well trained in saber art, so they're not going to be crazy flipping off the walls, amazing, right? But just because the Jedi aren't anymore doesn't mean that people in the entire galaxy don't know how to fence anymore. So there are probably fencing instructors that Luke would have brought in. But let's just take that out of it. Let's just say that nobody knew how to train people how to fence properly. The footing, the motions, the balance while fighting was so off. And it was because of the actors when they were doing it, and they're not fencing. They're rushing these movies so hard. They want to make a movie every year. They got 6 months to plan, 6 months to shoot. Boom, boom, boom. They don't take their time. I mean, do you remember the prequels? I mean, I give this to the prequels. People hated the prequels for a different reason than they're hating the new ones. The prequels they hated because the story was good, the acting was bad, and there were way too many CG. I mean, that was not the fault of the actors. They were given direction. If you look at the behind the scenes, you see George Lucas basically giving them direction on how to act, and I don't agree with it. That's not how classic acting is done. The blocking and the dialogue were supposed to be integrated, but when he was telling them how to move, how to speak, he was telling them to block it out. Dialogue blocking, and it was awkward. But overuse of CG, like, you know how many 501st people would have been thrilled to be in the prequel movies? You know, they'll make their own armor and they'll be there for free. They didn't have to have every clone be a CG character that looked all like, Tron-like. But that's why they didn't like the originals. The story was good. I liked the story. This one, the story is faltering. The props, the graphics, the acting, everything like that I actually like in the new ones. It's just the fact that the story, to me, which is more of a core issue for these, is a problem. That's why I can watch the prequels and I'm like, oh, I'll get over the whole Jar Jar thing. I mean, but even I showed my wife the episode 1, and she'd never seen Star Wars like all of them, and she's not a huge fan. She tolerates it. Therefore, I mean, that's why we got married. She could tolerate it. But when the first time she saw Jar Jar, she said, "What the fuck is that?" I was like, "Oh, I love you so much more." But yeah, that's the difference between these, and the saber fighting in these new ones is just so subpar because the actors don't know how to move. They're very rigid. Excuse me, very rigid. The way that they plant their feet and shift their bodies, the motions that was happening between the battle between Luke and Kylo, um, the way they were sliding their feet into different positions and putting the lightsaber into position, they are not correct positions at all. They put them so off off balance and completely inform their next move. That's not the way you fight with a sword. Um, I was just watching it, and when they were contorting their body into these weird positions, I was like, "Ooh, ooh, stop it, ooh!" So that hit me real hard. So now some points real quick here in defense that you might have overlooked. People were attacking the whole 18 hours uh, on Luke's rec reclusion, and the 18 hours of the fleet for the fuel. Yeah, we don't know how long a day is on that place, but we also don't know for sure if those two storylines are played exactly in parallel. We do have some connections where Kylo is talking to Rey, so we know that those moments are kind of lined up, but we don't know if what we see of Rey before that was happening exactly the same time as the events with Resistance and the First Order in this movie. We don't know that because the scene in which Rey is handing over the lightsaber happened immediately after she left the Resistance. So we don't know how long it took for the First Order to find their Resistance base, which is another point of how do you find that base. They should have had one line of dialogue right in the beginning when they jumped out of hyperspace that says, say what you want about Kylo Ren, but he can interrogate somebody like nobody else, or something like that. Boom, we know how they found it. Little lines would just solve a lot of the stuff for me. But that's one thing to kind of say in defense of that whole thing, is that you don't know how much time passed because you don't know how much time took between when Rey first got there and when the First Order found the Resistance. Now, it is a copy of Episode 5 and Episode 6. I mean, I people argue against me on that. It is Episode 5 and Episode 6 jammed together because Force Awakens was basically Episode 4, scene by scene. This one is 5 and 6, nearly scene by scene, but I'm okay with it. And here's why. And I'll tell you that scene by scene, you have the Resistance slash Rebels, where their base is found, and the Empire slash First Order attacks them. They have to run away, in which the rogue character and the love interest go off on a side mission to a luxurious city, either in the clouds or in a gambling casino. Luxurious city where they feel like they're going to have help there, but the person that they trust to help them ends up betraying them, slash DJ and Lando, to the big baddies, and then it cuts over to being Return of the Jedi, where they have to rescue themselves out of a prison like Jabba's palace slash Canto Bight, and then escape, and then link up with the rest of the Resistance slash Rebellion, which results in a big fight at the end and then Luke goes to the Death Star slash Rey goes to the First Order main cruiser, and then tries to rescue or bring back from the Force Vader slash Kylo, and then the Emperor's there slash, you know what I'm saying. And there's a big room there with a throne and red guards and stuff like that. So right there is where it stops being the same movie and changes over to being saying something. Okay, now this is what the movies were. Now I'm different, and that's why I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this because it's basically a send-off. The first movie is an homage. The middle movie is a send-off, and then the third movie will be complete different end to the whole story. And I'm okay with that because it's like, here's all the stuff that happened, and at this point we're not going to repeat it. Now we're not going to do the same thing. We're going to do something different. It diverges from this point, and the third movie is going to be something you don't expect. So that's why I'm okay with that. I kind of want to finish this off with one of my own theories, and I think it's something that could give validity to both Rey and some of the other characters and open it up for future Star Wars movies. I want to say that the Force in this movie has been completely, well, not completely, way more explored than it had been. Now it's being said that it has its own nature in which it wants to bring balance Whenever dark rises, light to meet it, vice versa. It wants balance in all things. So I think it will be interesting if they come back and say that the prophecy of the Chosen One was not a one-time thing. The Chosen One is actually a reoccurring thing that the Force does either for the light or for the dark to balance things out again, which would mean that every time there was too much of one, there would be a Chosen One comes back to level it all back out, and basically to wipe the slate clean and try again. So, Anakin did that because he not only ended up destroying the Sith, but wiped out the Jedi. He cleared the table. So it was good to start over again. The Jedi Order was focusing too much on the light, the Sith too much on the dark. Let's wipe the slate clean and create something new that has a balance of both. And I think that would be an amazing theory for me, that if it were brought, to canon, is that the Chosen One is Rey, just like Anakin was the Chosen One. So it keeps happening, and it will keep happening to ensure balance in nature and the Force. So I'm going to end it here, just short of, actually probably at 40 minutes. I told you yours was long. I fell just short of yours, so apologies for that, but I hope you do me the honor of watching this thing all the way through, as I watched yours all the way through. And those are my main things, and like I said, if I would love to see a special edition that would just add some of those little points that to me would fix a lot of it. And but I know you can't fix the whole Admiral Holdo not telling Poe the plan, therefore causing Canto Bight. Now, the whole, that can't be fixed as much. I mean, you can be cut out, and actually if it were cut out, it probably would save 30 minutes out of the movie and put it just below or at 2 hours, which I prefer. But that's where I'm at. You are more than welcome to come back to my points. I actually welcome it. I am more of a person that want people to come back, counterpoints. Maybe it will change my mind. If it changes my mind, I'll be happy, because I really want to like this movie. And a little shameless plug, if you click here, I have a video now of my explanation of the Holdo Maneuver, which is why I didn't bring it up in this point. It did annoy me, but I think I've kind of worked it out in my Fan Fix It video. Give it a look. If you agree, if you don't agree, give it a like or a thumbs down. Any publicity is good publicity, I guess. Check it out. Let me know what you think, and enjoy your day, and be well.